Welcome to r/RedditRevenge. This is a story about someone getting back at someone with revenge after being wrong. And today we have 3 great stories. So subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story. Landlord screwed me out of my deposit even though I fixed up his trashy apartment. Turned newly renovated apartment into fish fillet. The second story. Not my boss tells me off for not recording private conversations. Gets caught being a racist by recording private conversations. The third story. Mailman won't ring the doorbell or call and just leaves with my packages so that I have to pick them up at the post office. On to the first story. Greedy landlord refused to return deposit for renovated apartment. At the beginning of my junior year of college, I moved out of my parents' house and into a quadplex. Old house turned into 4 apartments. My parents weren't helping me out, and I had a minimum wage job, so the apartment was the best I could do. It was in the middle of an old downtown neighborhood, and this house was originally built in 1906. The wooden floors had large slopes, the walls were cigarette yellow, the large sliding door in the middle of the place was off the hinges, the drop ceiling in the kitchen was missing, and the ceiling in the bathroom had a tile completely taken over by black mold. That's not all. The kitchen had no cabinets. There was a bird's nest somewhere, never found it. The back door had a large gap at the bottom and had 2 complete holes from carpenter bees. The toilet had a permanent black ring. There was no central air and heating, and if you plugged up too many things at once, the breaker would blow. It got so cold some nights that the water in my glass would freeze into a solid ice cube. To top all that off, the lady above me was a hoarder and had 20+ cats. There was a major flea infestation that had spilled over into my apartment. The landlord was pretty upfront about everything. He didn't really care about the state of the apartment and priced it really low to get someone like me who would deal with it. I was a kid and it was my first place, so I didn't realize what I was getting myself into. I was just grateful to have shelter. So I moved in and got permission to renovate the place with expenses being reimbursed. I cleaned and painted the walls, fixed the 15-foot sliding door, replaced the drop ceiling. The black mold was really disgusting. Flea bombed the place twice, fixed the bathroom up as best as I could, replaced the back door, sealed all the holes everywhere, replaced outlets, the whole 9 yards. It went from being a miserable pile of trash to a fairly livable apartment. After about 11 months, I decided that I could not deal with the intense winter nights and made a deal with my landlord to find replacement tenants to move in, since I signed a 12-month lease. I found a nice couple who really liked the place, and the landlord allowed them to take over the lease. Here is where SH hit the fan. When I asked for my $400 deposit back, the landlord straight up refused. He said because I was a couple of days late on paying rent, a few months ago, that my deposit had covered the late fee charges. There was never any agreement about late fees, and he never told me there was a problem when I would let him know that the rent might be a little late. I was furious. All the hard work I put into this place just to be told that I wouldn't even be getting my deposit back? We went back and forth for a few minutes before I said to him, "You don't want me living in this place for another week knowing that I won't be getting my deposit back." He responded by letting me know that he has recent pictures of the apartment that shows the current state of it, and that if I damaged anything, he would be taking me to court and making sure there was an eviction on my rental record. He also thanked me for texting him so he could have proof in court when he sued me. Now is time for the revenge. I wanted to destroy the place like he anticipated, but I didn't want to tarnish my rental history so early on in my life. I was also afraid of being sued, even though now I know that it's illegal to not return a renter's deposit for the reasons he had. So I brainstormed for a bit and decided that since he had pictures, I had to do something you can't see. I went to the freezer and pulled out a giant bag of tilapia that I had bought from Costco. I cut all 15-ish of them into 5 pieces. I went through the apartment and placed the fish in the ceiling, behind wall sockets, behind light switch covers, in the unused floor vents, at the top of the closet. I even undid all the doorknobs and placed the fish inside of them. I then got my cat's litter box and brought in the bag of cat poop that I had just thrown out and dumped it evenly in the floor vents. I then got black construction paper and placed it evenly on top of the litter to disguise it so you couldn't tell. I moved out the very next day and got into a much better apartment. A week later, I went to drop off the keys in the mailbox, but curiosity got the best of me, and I wanted to see my masterpiece. I opened the door, and I was greeted by a giant wave of something I could only describe as the most foul smell that has ever assaulted my nasal cavity. I quickly closed the door back, dropped the keys in the mailbox, and left. A few weeks later, the landlord had came to my new apartment and was banging hard on my door. "Who the hell do you think you are? You think this is over, smart A?" With a giant smile, I said, "Looks like it," and closed the door in his face. Still makes me smile when I think about it. The next story is Prove Racist by His Own Rules. So at my last job in a call center, we were informed upon applying that we were an incoming call-only center. Day 3 of training, it is revealed that no, we have to do outgoing calls on the dialer of the customers of our employer to see if they want a smart meter. Now, everyone hates these calls. You hate receiving them, we hate making them. The worst part of them was because we were connected to the automated dialer, everything we said was recorded, both while talking to customers and when waiting for the next response. Now, Jerry is a line manager for a bay of callers. Not my manager, not my bay, but Jerry has a habit of trying to do the head of operations job. He would say he would fill in your overtime paperwork for you and forget. His friends would be allowed to take hour-long respite breaks when I get a 15-minute lunches, and chewed out if I'm even a minute late, even though I've still not been given lift access, and have to try and with my walking stick conquer 2 flights of stairs, my food and the bathroom in that time, because God forbid I take a respite break to pee. Found out after that I was actually entitled to a paid hour for lunch, and not to make up time for the 15 minutes unpaid like Jerry told me. Jerry is also a lad. There's a lot of lad culture in this call center. Apparently being a lad means banter such as sexist comments and gestures to all the female staff, homophobic and racist jokes, and touching other staff. Most of this gets waved away though because it's hard to prove. I'd like to remind you again that while this guy is a manager, he's not my manager. My manager was cool and let everyone get away with the same amount of SH. Not a lot, but if you wanted to eat fruit at your desk or write limericks on your friend's whiteboard, she would turn a blind eye. One day I'm on outgoing calls, and like everyone else muting my headset between answers, because no customer wants to answer the phone to me telling my friends about my latest drama. I get chewed out by him for having my headset on mute too much on my outgoing calls. Okay, first off, why are you listening to my call logs? That's my manager's job, not yours. Second, one of my friends had been recently chewed out for inappropriate conversation by him, in which he suggested her using her mute button when not on the call. Me and Jerry were known nemesis. As a disabled LGBT genderqueer feminist lefty, I was basically his polar opposite. We argued a lot, and I called him on his BS even more. I would regularly get told I was spending too much time off the phone because of our discussions, but again they would get waved under the table. Enough. Next time he starts, I'm not meant to be an outgoing, but I trade with my friend, who didn't know my plan, but was more than happy to trade off the SH job. I start recording but leave myself in paperwork mode so I won't get a call. Then I start replying to him, explaining that if he's going to be racist, he should not do it in the workplace, asking him why he thinks it's acceptable to say that all Muslims are terrorists right next to where Niam was sitting last week until she quit, and Leah before her, and in fact, all the Muslim girls who had been on his team. Then I moved on to the homophobia, asking why he felt the need to loudly disrespect my trans complaint customer calling in, because she had literally been attacked in her own home by one of our engineers, especially during one of my callbacks, and since he didn't have any reason to know about her complaint, so as complaints was a different department, and once again he was not my manager, so he didn't have reasons to be listening to my calls. At some point we went on to more personal stuff, his habit of grabbing and playing with my hair, him stealing my walking stick and Paul's crutches, playing with them and leaving them on the other side of the building. But then I went on the warpath about his comments on biology regarding disabled people not being as good at jobs as able-bodied and chromosomes only possibly being XX or XY. I'm not doing the rant again, but I'm very interested in genetics, so let's just say there was much bringing up of trisomy and Kleinfeld and leave it at that. He admitted to everything, doubled down too, saying that Muslims were inherently evil, women can't take a compliment, there are only 2 sexes genetically speaking, anyone who identifies as non-straight and cisgender should be sectioned, and everything else he spewed. Now, by this time I had been off the available for calls for nearly an hour of my 6-hour shift. My boss notices later and asks what happened, because I could get fired for that. I suggest she and the head of operations listen to the log. They do. Jerry gets called over to head boss's desk and leaves a lot quieter and very cross. Unfortunately, I don't know the exact details of what happened. I was scheduled off for a weekend and had an accident. Ended up on medical leave for 6 months and then had to quit. Sick pay issues. But I do know from other colleagues he left and moved into his parents' house in London about 2 months after our spat. I also know from a mutual acquaintance that he hasn't gotten another job in a call center since, so I call it a win. The last story is, Post office said I couldn't file a complaint about the mailman not trying to deliver my packages because I had no proof. So, I got proof. For context, in my country, if your package gets sent through the National Postal Service, you're basically screwed. It takes 200 years and they never actually deliver it. I don't know how it is in other countries, but here they're supposed to ring the doorbell if the package doesn't fit in the mailbox. And if you don't answer, they leave a notice, and you have to go and pick it up all the way at the post office. The problem is that my mailman doesn't even try to deliver them. He just leaves the notice without even ringing the doorbell and leaves. I've had to pick up nearly every package I've ordered because of that. Well, the last time was my last straw. I was obviously home because of the pandemic. Suddenly, I received a call that immediately hung up. It was so fast that my phone didn't even ring, just showed up as a missed call. No doorbell, nothing. I suspected it was the mailman and ran to the door, only to find him inside the truck, looking straight at me before driving off. Well, I was peeved and called the post office to file a complaint. I explained the situation, and the lady told me that I couldn't file a complaint because they're only instructed to ring the doorbell, and calling is optional, and I couldn't prove that he didn't ring it. At first, I just avoided using them again at all costs, but the other day I ordered something and chose a delivery company from the ones listed on the website. Apparently, that company hires the National Post Service to deliver for them here. When I found out, I basically stalked the tracking info for days. It was about 2 weeks late, until one day late at night it said it had arrived in my country, which usually means that the next day it's going to be delivered. The next day I woke up at 7 a.m. to check. It could have been less. I know they never come before 10:30, but I didn't want to miss it just in case they decided to come early. I was awake and had nothing to do. I figured it was best just to wait there instead of fighting the urge to look outside every 2 seconds. My suspicions were correct. It set out for delivery. I quickly grabbed something to eat, got in my car, and parked right outside my house. Then I waited and waited and waited. 6 hours in total until I finally see the post truck pulling over. I grabbed my phone to record and watched as the mailman opened the door, already either the notice in hand, slid it inside my mailbox, and turned around. I got out of the car and said, "Excuse me, what are you doing?" He didn't even look at me and said, "Just delivering packages, miss." Then I stood there as that a-hole grabbed his phone to call me and quickly hung up. I smiled as I took my phone out of my pocket and sarcastically stated, "Oh, bummer, you didn't even give me time to reach the phone." He literally turned white, Couldn't even speak. I continued, "Now can you give me my package, please?" He quickly opened the truck, almost tripped, and took out my package. "See, wasn't that easier than your whole scheme?" He finally manages to say, "Sorry, miss." I turned around and left. He probably thought he got lucky I didn't say anything else, but little did he know I sent that video to the post office via email, attached to my complaint. Well, let's say I have a new mailman. This one tries to leave 1 second after ringing the doorbell, but at least he rings. He was not nice or professional. Everyone's saying I should just install a camera. That would work, yes, but then he would leave with the package and I would have to go pick it up. I wanted my package that day. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you liked it, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button.